Welcome to Mental Health Monthly with Dan DeGryse and Chris Muscle.
So welcome to another edition of Mental Health Monthly. My name is Dan DeGryse, and my co-host is Chris Muscle. Chris, how you doing?
Good. You?
I'm doing fantastic. Can you give me any more?
Yeah, it's great. I'm excited for this episode. Got an awesome guest today.
All right. You look like you're about to go in an interview right now. So we got a wonderful guest, Michael Glynn out of Texas, and Chris is going to do the intros.
Yeah, Michael, thanks for being here with us today. So
Sure.
over 22 years, service in your community around the country, began your career with San Antonio Fire Department, working at Station 35, hazmat team promoting, and then in 2006, you joined Fort Worth Fire Department, where you currently serve, captain assigned to the Union Hall there, District 11 vice president, about 6 months on the job, right? So
Right.
far.
Yes.
Prior to that, you were the president, Local 440 in Fort Worth, over 8 years. And then when you were with Fort Worth, you negotiated contracts successfully, city leaders, multiple appointments from the IAFF, State Association of Firefighters, pretty involved in political action committees, helping locals around the state. And then TSAF Board of Trustees, in 2014, appointed by the General President for the IAFF for the Partnership Education Program instructor, one of about 30 instructors for over 350,000 members.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. And then 2021, you were appointed by the governor of Texas on the Texas Commission of Fire Protection.
Yes, sir.
And then you served on collective bargaining teams for San Antonio, Fort Worth, has a bachelor's degree, associate's degree, master firefighter through the state, married, proud father of 2. Hopefully I didn't leave anything out.
I have a grandson now.
And a grandson now.
Got a 4-month-old grandbaby boy down in San Antonio. So yeah, that's about the only thing.
Yeah.
The world changes, huh?
It really did. It really did, and it does. It melted my heart right away. So no, it's fun.
That's awesome.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we know that you're busy, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us. So,
Yeah, and Michael, apologize.
No worries.
What I will say is that for those of you that are listening to us, you might think, well, why are we having Michael Glynn, District Vice President from the IAFF here, talking about peer support? And what I could tell you for myself, and just to give people a perspective, is that having worked with my own local and working with the IAFF, working with many business agents, district vice presidents, representatives, you name it, I firmly believe that the greater majority of the people that get voted into positions such as yours, and at such a high level, like I don't think people in general realize the number of contacts that you have with boots on the ground, people on the ground, people in the firehouse, the spouses and so forth. And I truly believe that, and I know that you said that you haven't taken the IAFF 2-day peer support training, but I believe you're in that position as a elected official. And as a firefighter and as a captain, regardless of the rank, as a firefighter that's been in the field for 22 years, you can't help but be a peer supporter.
Oh, most definitely. I think you're right. And when you're an officer, when you're a firefighter, working with your colleagues, with your brothers and sisters, there's that bond, that firehouse culture, and that firehouse, those relationships. As an officer, you end up with those same kind of relationships. But of course, we have a duty to take care of those that are working with us and under us. But then, as a union leader, I think it's paramount that we're looking out for our members. We're making sure that we have the resources that are available, that their union dues are paying for, that they have access to them, and that we are doing what we can to make sure that not just that everyone goes home safe, but that they end up with a long and prosperous retirement where they're healthy both physically and mentally. And that's proving to be, as you both know, more of a challenge these days. And I'm grateful to be in the position I'm in. I've got a large district. I've got over 300 locals, 314 locals and counting. And to your point, Chief, the members that I represent is growing every day. I was in my email a little bit ago, and we're getting ready to affiliate a few more locals here in Texas in the 11th district. And when you start talking about having an outreach to 30,000 plus firefighters directly in my district, it's a big task. It's a big responsibility. But I'm happy that we have resources to help us with it.
Yeah, I'm sure Enzo appreciates that. I mean, Texas is a country in itself, but you cover Texas, Oklahoma, and the Canal Zone.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And you got to tell me a little bit more about the Canal Zone. Well,
I'd love to tell you a lot about the Canal Zone, but I think hopefully maybe a month, maybe 2 or 3 shy of having more information. They're still part of my district. They're not affiliated with us right now, but we've had some outreach by one of the members down there, and just trying to get in touch with them, so be able to make a trip down there and get them reaffiliated. So more to come. I'm hoping to be able to tell people more about the Canal Zone, but right now I just know roughly where it's at, and I know where I would fly into. So, and my passport's ready to go.
I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I did know that was part of the IAFF for, I think, the better part of 50 years, I think it was.
I believe so. Yeah. So
hopefully that can return.
Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Michael, talking about the IAFF and mental health, how does the IAFF prioritize mental health, well-being? Like you talked about it, right? You said, the job is for us to go home safe, but safe also includes mental well-being, physical well-being, and not just go home, but be able to retire happily, healthy, things like that. And I think something that me and Dan talk about is there's a lot of official peer support teams, and that's great, but there's as much unofficial peer support that happens than without the official team, like you said. So how does the IAFF play into that?
So the IAFF, I think we do a really good job of making resources available, whether it be something as structured as our IAFF Center of Excellence there in Maryland, where we can a local can send a member, whether it be drug or alcohol, or even just a behavioral health issue. We can send members there, and it's a professional clinic. It's just going to be firefighters that are on site, that our members will communicate with and interact with, and be in group sessions, and they really have. I've been on site there to take a tour of that campus, and it's amazing. It really is amazing what they put together to make it home, to make it like a firehouse. The kitchen table, the day room, the bunk room, really making it so that our members can feel comfortable and speak with one another. And so, so that's what I would say is, even the most structured of resources that we have. But then, we're getting ready to host. In fact, our state association is getting ready to host a behavioral health symposium next month in New Braunfels, Texas. And so we can do things like that at the state level with IAFF support, to get training, awareness out for our members. We also offer classes, whether it be at district conferences, our affiliate leadership training summit, ALTS, each year, which is going to be part of Summit for Excellence moving forward. But then also we can go out to different locals or parts of the country and do what the chief was talking about, and provide that peer support training, and making sure that our members, our affiliate leaders and members of the locals have the resources to be, good peer support for our members. So But really, when you just get down to that real base level, I think a lot of it just comes down to is just, brothers and sisters being willing to listen. Even if you don't have the training, sometimes at a minimum, just having an open ear and a willingness to listen can go a long way with someone who's hurting or looking for some resources. And then, of course, if you don't have the answer, we've got lots of people to call to find the answer.
Yeah. So speaking of that, what I think about a lot of times when I talk and we have a benevolent fund out here called Ignite the Spirit, which a friend of mine, Rich Pinsky, has run since 2003. And we often talk about how many phone calls you get. He gets it because the people need funds. Somebody died, somebody's sick, need to cover expenses, whatever else. Give people an idea of how many calls you get a day. Texts and calls, because I know you're smiling because it's innumerable, right? You probably think you'd have to look back and go, is it 50? And some people would be like, come on, no way. You probably get, go ahead. How many emails and calls you get a day?
Oh, I bet emails, around 50 is probably not a bad number when you start talking about phone calls, text messages, and when you throw the emails into it. Of course, there are the days that every now and then you get a kind of a quiet day, but I've had those moments where I'm on an airplane for a couple of hours, and when you're coming out of the clouds and you're getting ready to touch down in a city, and you're almost nervous. You're almost nervous about what did you miss for the last 2.5 hours, and what's going to be on your phone when you come out of airplane mode, so to speak, and it starts you start getting a cell signal. But no, I would say anywhere from 30 to 40 to 50 at least every day, individual contacts, and I think it's and again, it's not every day, but it's often. So. But it's not.
But that's at the local, the state, and the international level, right? And you got to try to prioritize that. And I'm assuming you're at home right now. And
I'm in my home office. Yes, sir. I got home this morning, or this middle of the day.
So you're married. I know you have 2 kids.
Yes, sir.
And you got a grandchild too. So one of the big things that we talk about is, and we're not necessarily want to get into it right now, is about self-care and how do you manage it from a behavioral health standpoint as people decide to be peer supporters. But very few people truly ask or understand from a local standpoint. And I've talked to many different presidents across the country and said, how do you manage? And they're like, well, we just keep answering the phone. And so how would you, well, I want to get back to how you prioritize that, but I know Chris has got another question.
No, Go ahead.
Okay. Let's just go into it then. Is how do you prioritize that?
I really go out of my way. I will return phone calls in the evening. I'll return phone calls on a Saturday or Sunday. And part of the reason why I've been developed a reputation of sorts for being responsive and being responsive quickly to members. And that's been when I was campaigning for the district vice president seat. That was one of the things that different affiliate leaders were, and I appreciated it, they were bragging on me about. But part of the reason why I try to be so responsive is I don't want to fall behind, because when so it makes it easier to prioritize by responding quickly, that I don't have them stacked up. But the best I could figure, to your point, is it's kind of like that inbox exercise. And when I'm looking at the issues that need the most attention, I think physical or mental safety for a member, or a local president has an issue going on. That's right there at the very top. Of course, if we've got an LODD, and I've dealt with a few already, making sure that those local presidents are prepared, and that they are. And in fact, one of the line of duty deaths that we had was unfortunately from one of our locals that is very, very up to speed on taking care of business and taking care of their families, and they know the process, but making sure that the locals and those families are taken care of. And then beyond that, it's prioritizing local business, contracts, grievances, and things like that. But I try to respond quickly. If it's something I need to answer, I get back with that local quickly. And if it's something I need to pass along up into headquarters, I do the same, mostly because it's a whole lot easier to take care of it little by little than letting it stack up. So
Is
it
there
also
a,
means you
is
never
there
really
a,
turn it off.
well, I was going to say, is there a quitting time? Because I know with my wife and my kids, when I was running our union's EAP program and our peer support, Dad would always get up out of the table and go in the other room, and Mom would have to explain why Dad was not there and didn't finish dinner and what he's doing. So I imagine with covering 3 states and all those people, right? There's a lot of, excuse me, I'll be back.
Yeah. So I will, and I've especially as we've talked to local leaders that are wanting to run for another position or wanting to get involved. I've thrown that caveat in there to tell members, especially with younger families, that I'm not necessarily the role model to look up to, as far as the management of time or like that. Because when's quitting time? I've always taken it so seriously and wanted to be available that if someone's got an issue, sometimes it needs to be addressed quickly. And to your point, I've stepped away from the table on vacation, answered my phone, looked down at emails, looked at a text message. And I was talking to a local leader the other day, and he said, "Yeah, you may not." My wife and I, he said, "My wife and I, we take that hour for dinner, and we put the phones away, and just you won't catch me." And I was like, "Man, that's great." I said, "I commend you for that." Maybe I wish I'd done that myself when my kids were younger, because you know your chickens come home to roost, and so it's they can look back on their childhood and see that, yeah, same thing you're talking about. The questions haven't been answered. Hey, why is dad walking away, or where is dad? And so I really do try to tell new leaders, especially with their kids, to take the job seriously and take that responsibility seriously, but also take care of home, take care of your home life. So that's critical. That's crucial.
Yeah, I think and a lot of people probably don't know this about you, but even before you were the District 11 vice president, right? When I was at my old department and we were starting our local, and you really didn't have an obligation to help us, but you did, right? And
I enjoyed it.
You enjoyed it. And I don't know, late night phone calls, early morning phone calls, middle of the day phone calls, like you were there, right?
Yeah,
And
I appreciate that.
I think it's just a passion that you have, right?
I think you have to have it to be successful, and to keep doing what we do as union leaders. You have to have that passion, and whether it be whatever sphere of piece of the sphere of union leadership. um, you know we've got the guys that focus on grievances, some that focus on discipline, and they do a fantastic job, but you have to have a passion for it to be successful, and to remember also that there's people counting on you. And this right here that we're talking about, mental health, we've got members that are counting on us, and we've got members that are making phone calls right now to a local president or a peer support member of their local. And I don't think that's a stretch of the imagination to think that there are phone calls being made right now, because it's happening so often.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think when you I don't know if put yourself out there is the right word, but when you live in this arena, you kind of expect it a little bit. Just recently, I got a message from a person and said, "Hey, can you chat with this person? They're struggling right now." from a different part of the state that I didn't know, never even met them. And I said, and I wasn't feeling well. And I said, sure, here's my phone number. They're more than welcome to text or call. And this person texted me, and we back and forth for 8 hours on a text message thread. And at the end of it, he was like, my day's better.
Yeah.
Never met this person. And so for me, there's this little bit of expectation that if you're going to do this and you're going to be part of it and be passionate, you kind of expect it a little bit, right? As Dan's saying, the hard part is, where do you find the balance? Because same thing, I've walked away from the baseball game, or, the dinner table, or the office too. But for me, if it was for one person, it was worth it, right? And going back to what you said earlier about the IAFF, from the Center of Excellence to all the different programs, sometimes it's just an ear for somebody. It's just somebody to listen to, right? That it doesn't take this inpatient commitment, crazy, there are times that happens, but sometimes it's just a conversation and you turn their day around, right? And I always say, like, it's okay to have a bad day. It's not okay to have a bad life, right? Bad days are going to happen. And so I think that is pretty powerful. Well,
and to your point about, text messaging with that individual or that member back and forth over 8 hours, when we all came on the job, it's there's the excitement, there's the thrill, and we're going to go save lives, and we're going to have a grab, or we're going to get rescues, and those things happen during the course of our career, and those are very tangible. We can think back, or we can identify, we can see the pictures, we can see the videos of a department that had a rescue yesterday, or had they made a grab the day before. I think I saw a video from one of my locals here in Texas, and they were talking about, it was a video of apartment fire. They said, yeah, they had some rescues there. Those are tangible, but what we don't get to see, and we just don't know, but I think it's very clear that we're doing it. We don't know the lives that we have saved, literally, from some of our members, or that's some of our peer support counselors, or members of the peer support teams, truly saving a life of a member that might have been going down and making a different decision about what to do with their own life. And so there's a lot to be said for that. And I'm really proud of what we're able to do through the IAFF to save lives of our members. And if we can't save our own lives, then hey, what good is it to go save other people's lives if we're not going to take care of our own members first? Because that's our family.
It's such a good point, because you see it on the news, and you see it on the socials, the grab and the heroism award, and you see all that. But how many of our own are we saving by the day that we don't see and we don't talk about, right? For right reasons, right? Privacy and things like that. But it's such a good point.
No one's ever gotten an award for keeping one of our members from committing suicide. You can't do it. They wouldn't want the award anyways, even if you could identify it. But those are those ones that we can't necessarily identify how many lives we've saved and prevented from committing suicide. But yeah, we're spot on.
So as I said before, Michael, and you may subscribe to it, you may not. I don't know if the listeners are as well, but really equate individuals in the position of executive board members and to the highest level of the IAFF, where you're a DVP and so forth, to people that care for others and want to help them out. And you may not necessarily have thought of that way, but I know when I've talked to my own local and people in those positions, while maybe their intent wasn't initially, if I know from a big local we got 8,000 members, we have a lot of things that go on in a given day. And while I wasn't a board member, I was involved in it. And people that, and let's be honest, some of us cause our own problems. But when we're talking about loss of pay or loss of rank, or something in regards to the pension, bullying or coworker issues, not everybody's always calling the peer supporter. They're calling the local representatives, and then it comes up to your level as well. And you've been in all those different levels yourself. So you have to be an active listener. You got to be a problem solver. You have to have an awareness of past practices, so you don't give poor information or a false sense of hope to somebody. And you got to direct them to even though you're a fixer, there's some things you can't do on your own. Again, all those pieces are really a piece of what a peer supporter does, and direct them to one, their individual desire to change and support themselves, and the resources that are needed to help them with whatever situation they are. So again, I just reiterating the fact that of what I said earlier in the show is, while I look at you as a representative, well, number one, it's the coolest thing in the world, right? To be the representative of not only another person, but a local, a state organization. And I think we only have 16 DVPs within the IAFF. That's a big responsibility. So with that said, tell the viewers, and hopefully you subscribe with the idea of, really peer support, but even a more, I wouldn't say a more educated, but an education even beyond what a general peer supporter has. Because a lot of times peer supporters will direct people to contract enforcement, local presidents, and so forth to understand what they can do when they get themselves in trouble, and vice versa. But what drove you to do this, what you're doing?
It's so I'm so excited to be in the position I'm in because it's fun. I enjoy the unknown each day. I enjoy getting to help people. But I'll be honest, kind of what drove me to want to do like this. I didn't even know that this existed when I started as a firefighter. I didn't know much about when I started off as a firefighter. My uncle was a Fort Worth firefighter. He was on the executive board and on our PAC board for 440 for the Fort Worth firefighters, and but I honestly didn't even know that this district vice president seat existed, and I didn't know much about being a state president or a state officer or a local president, but what drove me to want to get involved early on was want to be a part of something bigger, and taking some of my skills. I worked in sales coming out of college, and that's really what got me started. When I was working for San Antonio, at my station, I had a former local president, was the engine lieutenant there on Engine 35, and Lieutenant Anderson, Johnny, he was a previous local president, and we got to talking about the union and talking about things that needed to be done or that could be done. And so negotiations, that's where I got started. And it's just kind of evolved from there. When I went to Fort Worth, it was getting involved with our political action committee. And then that just morphed into me traveling across the state and helping set up PAC funds and make different visits. So it's all just kind of built upon itself. But it is kind of, I kind of laughed because I didn't even know I've gotten to do things as a firefighter that I never dreamt of. Didn't even know that you could dream of it. I didn't know that the position existed. Being a commissioner on the Texas Commission on Fire Protection, and serving as right now the assistant presiding officer and potentially being the next presiding officer. Didn't know that existed when I took the certification exam. And so it's fun. And that's kind of something different every day. And but it's also knowing I'm not working for a private sector corporation where the bottom line is trying to make a profit, and so that we can keep the stockholders happy. For us as a labor union, our stockholders are like the two of you and the 354 plus thousand other members that we have across the United States and Canada. and they're our shareholders, and we work hard to deliver results for them. And it's so it really is something that I believe that we can leave it better than we found it. And I think we're working really hard. And I know the job is better than when I got on. The union is better than when I got on. And I believe that when I'm done, I really hope that someone is going to be sitting in my seat down the road and they'll be saying the same thing, going, man, the union's better than when I started. And so leave it better than we found it.
So good. Leave it better than we found it. Michael, so you said earlier there's new locals coming on and Texas is constantly growing and your whole district's constantly growing. So I just have a question. If there's always this question of where does peer support live? Does it live in the local's responsibility? Does it live in the department's responsibility? But let's just talk about the local for a second. You have a new local that's starting, or you have an existing local that doesn't have a peer support team, and they come to you, right, for guidance, and they said, "Hey, do you think we should have a peer support team?" What's your answer to that?
Yes. And if they don't have the resources, the numbers because to have an IAFF local, you need 3 members. We can have a local as small as 3. And so, if they're not going to have a peer support team, at least having someone that they can reach out to, because even some of our members don't want to talk to members within our department. They might want to talk to someone they don't know. Not so much that it's anonymous, but it's someone that they don't have to see at the fire station when they come back to work. And so it's having just those resources available to them. So if they're not going to have a team, which I think the answer is yes, they're going to have someone nearby that they can call on for support. And to go back and answer, it was almost a 2-part question there, but you also asked me about where does it lie? Does it lie with the department or the local? And there's a number of things that, working for a large department, there's a lot of things that our department really should be able to handle, and they could. But there's some of the things that I believe that we do better because we have greater continuity. In my time as president, the president that was before me was in his 20th year. I was in my 9th year when I got elected to the district vice president seat. That we have greater continuity in union leadership than they do in the 40-hour world. The people that are assigned to an administrative function. And so while we do have great support in our chaplain's office in Fort Worth and having a peer support team there, I think the local and a lot of departments can really carry that forward and have greater continuity over the course of time. Work well with the department, but I like us having a bit of the control and the organization because we know we can control our team and our group to make sure that we're available.
Yeah, and I think something that you said is you can have a local with as little as 3 members. And one thing that I say with peer support teams is if you've seen one team, you've seen one team. And some teams are very elaborate and they're very experienced and a lot of money goes into them. And there's other teams that are just living it day by day, and that's okay. And something that is when you are through the IAFF or the union, you have resources. It's marketing 101, right? Like I have now opened myself up to this network of 350,000 plus, right? Maybe I'm Fort Worth and I'm, building my team and okay, let me find a similar size city with similar challenges and employee numbers and things like that, right? And maybe I'm a smaller one. Okay, let me find a smaller team. And so I think a lot of times when people hear, oh, I want to start a peer support team, they think, oh, this is a big task. And it's really not when we reach out to our resources.
And I think one thing, as I worked as an instructor for the IAFF, we start talking about size of departments and what the chief was talking about. I mean, you've got your Chicagos that are 8,000 members. That's enormous. You've got your Houstons, 36, to 4,000 members. It's a lot of firefighters. So you get this 70 member department or this 80 member local. Man, we're not a big department. How can we do some of those cool and good things that they do? Well, the fact of the matter is, the vast majority of our departments are less than 100, or of our locals. And there's kind of a rule of thumb that once you hit 100, you're a large local. And everyone thinks of large locals as, San Antonio's, Austin's, LA's, Chicago's, New York's, your large locals. But really, you start getting down to, I was talking to the fire chief, and he's the past president for Mission, Texas, down in the valley. And they're going to be at 100 here very shortly. And he was talking about, we're going to hit 100. Well, that's a big local. And I'll tell you, Mission local, Mission firefighters, they do great work, whether it be on the political scene, with their peer support. They're doing good things for their members, and it's a 100-man local, 100-member local down there.
Yeah. As I've gotten to travel, I've realized that you're right, like you said, the average department is somewhere between 125 and 200 members. Mm-hmm. And what we learned and you mentioned that you were an instructor, you were a PEP instructor, right?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So when we developed the 2-day IAFF peer support training, we got to have some of the PEP instructors come in and offer us some tidbits and do some training with us. So I appreciate them and what you all do, because
yes.
Everybody wants to think that they're the greatest and the best until you see people that really know what they're doing. And I've learned a lot over the last 8 years working with PEP instructors and other people. But to the point in regards to, so our department is actually 5,000, 3,000. Actually, we have, here's a interesting piece, from a self-care standpoint. And we talked about Tom Flam a minute ago, is that back in the 1990s, our life expectancy in Chicago was only 4 years after retirement. Back when I came on in the 80s, we had, I think, 2,200 retirees. And again, we're going back, we started in 1835 and volunteer, but, we've had 4,500 to 5,000 for a long time, but people weren't living a long time. Our last pension, and I know this because I'm saying this because I know you appreciate people living a good life, and that's your goal in many aspects, financially, health-wise. I know cancer is a big push with the PFAS and all that, with the IAFF and probably every department across the country. But in our last pension newsletter, it was identified that we have, I think, 3,500 retirees. So we've almost increased in 2 decades, 50% more retirees. And I'm assuming you probably hear and see that more as you go around, because you see, you're running, you cover 3 states and you're with the IAFF. You're probably seeing more retirees, but then that also brings the other aspect of it is, have we planned for retirement? Did you take care of yourself? Because a lot of the people that I came on with said, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Well, most of them are dead, unfortunately. Right. And you continue in your service line to create, hours, pay, and working conditions, right? That's the 3 main goals there for our members. And whether it be 5,000 in my department or 150 in whatever department, we all have the same issues.
Yep. Yeah, wages, benefits, and working conditions. Just those 3 pillars are really, and also talk about employment rights, employee rights. But yeah, the wages, benefits, and working conditions, that's the bread and butter that we've got to be looking out for.
Yeah, and what we often say, and again, not to belabor the self-care, I could only imagine that you get in that position to help the membership, right? And what does that mean? And then when you're at home or when you're flying or when you're talking to your wife or you're out with your kids, because it doesn't happen with me. And I'm really asking you is you got to be thinking, okay, how could we do it better? Can we offer more? Could we have got them this? And how and when can you turn your mind off?
And I wish I was hoping you were going to give me a good answer for that. Because I really don't. It is amazing. I'll wake up early, wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and, lay back in bed and your mind starts thinking about the things that you need to get done, things you need to do. Yeah, but I don't complain. I'm not complaining about it because I enjoy it. But it is a matter of, I don't think I ever really turn it off. It's a passion, as we were talking earlier, it's a passion, it's a responsibility. But I think the moment that we stop thinking about how to make things better, maybe that's the time, to hang it up and to move into retirement, of union work. Or when you feel like you've done everything you can, maybe that's the time to pass it on to the next generation. But I'm always trying to come up with ways to make it better.
So I do have an answer, and Chris knows me well enough that I don't give answers, but I won't give you the construct of it, but I will give you what I tell, and Chris and I have talked about, and many of the peer supporters do, is that shutting it down doesn't happen by accident. It has to be intentional. And I'll just say this is in regards to, so I've been married 30 years, and so from the fire service to behavioral health to training to developing curriculum to having my own business, you name it. It's like, I think back to trying to put my wife and kids first. I always thought in my head I was by doing all the things I did, but I realized I didn't. And this is not a counseling session, but when you said, hey, I wish I thought you were going to give me an answer. It's the intentionality of it.
I appreciate that.
So that was never at the forefront of many of our top fives. It was always the next thing. It was never, I know I got to get to sleep at some point, but X, Y, and Z. So a simple thing that I tell people now, and again, I'm 60 years old, is if my wife says dinner's at 6:00, I get there at 5:02. And before I used to get there at 6:15.
Yeah.
And it's a simple thing. And I joke about, it's humility. It's, it'd be a simple task, but I very seldom achieved that throughout most of my life until the last 5 years when I was intentional about it.
I can appreciate that intentionality. I think that transcends a number of different things that we do and need to do, and sometimes it's to that point. I think it's a matter of also being present. And I think that's kind of what you're saying, also. But that's what I think of also. Just not always good at being present. I may be there. Like for me, I may be there at 6:00. More along the lines of the 6:15. But it's one thing to be there physically, but to really be just present in the moment. And I've been accused of that many times. That we just talked about this. Well, I don't remember hearing you say that. And so, if she was in the room, she would be agreeing with you right away.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to get you in trouble.
It's okay.
It was more from my standpoint, and again, guys like me and Chris and others. And I can't tell you some of the names. I don't want to do that, but I've had conversations with many people in significant positions in big departments that are like, yeah, I wish I would have done better. And because there's always going to be tomorrow, right? There's always going to be tomorrow. There's always going to be those emails and so forth. But we kind of talk about it a lot more in the peer support aspect. But again, to go back with a union standpoint, 80% or the old adage was 80% of your energy goes into 20% of the population. So nobody's calling you to invite you, to lunch or to a birthday party. They're calling you because they got a problem.
Yep. Oh, so we've got a new local president, and he and I are just great friends, best of friends. And, and he's experiencing the same thing that I can remember, that you show up in the union hall office and you've got a list of things that you're going to get done that day, and you're going to move mountains, and you're going to change the hearts and minds of people, and just do lots of good things. And you're in the office for 10 minutes and your day's blown up. And then you're down at fire administration till the afternoon, and the end of the day comes and you didn't get to do anything that you planned on doing that day. So I get that to a point as a DVP. I will say my day doesn't get blown up as much as it used to as a local president. But it is amazing the stuff that pops up, and just trying to keep up with everything.
And that, to your point, for me, I used to always try to get my list checked off at the end of the day. And sometimes I'd work till 1 a.m, 2 a.m, 3 a.m, and constantly just try to wipe my list out. Yep. And it wind up obviously affecting my sleep and being present, like we're talking about. And I wouldn't say that I'm perfect now, but what I do is when my day gets blown up, I reshuffle my list. Yeah. Right. And so this got bumped to the top. This gets moved to tomorrow or something like that, because when you try to do that, it will drive you crazy. I want to go back real quick.
Hey, go ahead with it. But I'm going to say, you probably can't see my list.
Oh, there you go.
There's nothing crossed off it. So I think I got 10 things on there. There's nothing crossed off, but I am going to go to bed tonight. I'm going to eat on time, and I'm going to bed.
The only thing crossed off is golf for the day.
That was yesterday. Yeah.
See? So I just, before we move on, because I want to get to the next question, but something you both mentioned earlier: hours, wages, and working conditions, right? Employee rights. Those are all super important. And I think it's worth noting for people that are listening, everything we do plays back into our mental health, right? When hours are good and wages are good and working conditions are good, that's going to set us up better for our mental health. I think what happens sometimes is it's the bad calls, right? The call that nobody wants to go on that you went on. And that's what we often tie mental health to. But the working environment and the conditions can be a bigger factor sometimes than the call, right? And so I think it's important for people to know the work that's being done by the IAFF, your state association, your local, right, is just as important as the real-time response that we deal with. And so,
well, to your point, Chris and Michael, I think you'll appreciate this, is that when I was the coordinator for Local 2's EAP and our peer team, it was for 14 years. I kept the stats. The number one reason people called us was because they had a relationship issue. The first one was at home, and then the second one was at work. So it ended up being work-related issues, whether it be bullying or not a promotion or some overtime stuff, or you name it. The whole gamut of it. And if you look at statistics across the country, I think they say that 75% of people feel stress at work, and 65% of the workers across the country identify it as significant stress.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. Michael, when we talk about what's the IAFF, so how do they support real-time crisis response, at the department level? There's been LODDs, there's been big disasters that have happened. What does that look like? So an agency or a local has a big event in their community. What resources are available? I know that there's peer support teams that the IAFF will send in and stuff like that. What does that look like?
Yeah. So, if you look at something like the shooting that we had in El Paso a number of years ago, we put, we had boots on the ground. We sent peer support members from across the state, some from across the country, as I recall, and deploy them, just like we do task force deployments for the fire department. The IAFF sponsors and provides the payment for a deployment for something like that. If it's a line of duty death, if it's a single member that's passed away in a line of duty death, we provide resources out of headquarters. The district vice president is available. District vice president travels in, but then and to make sure that the local has everything they need. One of the things that I've got set up for my district is one of my service reps. He's prepared. I've got him set up that if we have a line of duty death, that I can deploy him as an individual resource to go help them with the planning and the logistics of setting up for the funeral, and especially the day of all the to make sure that all the honors are appropriate and they're set up. Now, when you move into a multiple line of duty death, or the potential that it's going to turn into a multiple, that's where the IAFF, that's where we're going to put boots on the ground right away. We're going to get people on an airplane, and we're going to send them to help not take over, but to make sure that we are on the ground and we are present in the moment, and we're making sure that whether it be printing, something as simple as printing materials, making sure that we help them to plan the different funerals, and help also with the peer support. But we actually we send, we've got a deployment plan and a model for what DVPs are responsible. I've got an assignment if there's a multiple line of duty death in three different districts, then I'm going to go. I'll be one of the DVPs that's assigned to go. But yeah, we're going to have people out of headquarters, out of DC, health and safety, that are going to be boots on the ground for a multiple line of duty death incident.
Yeah, and I think that's it's good for people to know, because sometimes when there is that incident in your local, maybe it's not your own people, right, that you want trying to handle it. Maybe they're as affected by it. So, Dan, I know you don't probably want to add to it, but you want to add anything to that? Because I know that you've obviously been around the country, deployed on numerous incidents.
Yeah, a couple things. One I'll say is that and it made me think of, gosh, I hope I get the year right. I think it was 2008. We had a double line of duty death. Corey Aikman and Stringer were killed in a collapse. And at the time, I honestly didn't know exactly what to do. I knew I didn't want to do a CISM training or a debriefing or diffusing. I had talked to the commissioner. People were hurting. And long story short, is I reached out to Frank Lito out of New York, who I sat on the IAFF Behavioral Health Committee for, at the time, 7 years. And said, Frank, we need help. And so we discussed it. They had 5 of their members come out. We brought them to an auditorium, and we had our chaplain there. I opened it up. I had 5 of their individuals kind of share their story from 9/11 and their aftermath. And the whole idea of connection and sharing stories of connectivity was born. And not that I created the IAFF model, but no matter how big or small your department is, you need help. You need somebody to call. And so over the years with, Pat Morrison and Willie Ostaguy and Frank, and the current team has evolved with, Jim Brinkley and, I know I'm forgetting names, but John Nemec and others that collectively now probably get so many different calls across the country to support. And it might be just a conversation, or it might be a deployment with a few people, or it might be a full-fledged deployment like we just did in Washington, D.C. And the collective minds and the support that the IAFF has for IAFF members is unmatched. Now, the other side of it too, just to be realistic, is the greater majority of the people are out there that are in fire service are volunteers or combination departments that aren't associated with the IAFF. And I'm sure that many of us in our own realms have supported those individuals. Just because they're not part of the IAFF doesn't mean that we wouldn't support them from knowledge or conversation and or even a response, not necessarily from the IAFF, but from local departments or individuals. And then you got the National Volunteer Fire Council that supports those individuals. And then even in the state of Texas, right? Wendy Norris from the Texas Line of Duty Desk Task Force. So the cool thing is over the last, I'm going to say 10, 15 years, there's been a lot of collective discussions and movement and support. The one thing I will say is that, and if you just look at mass shootings across the country, that if you look back 10 years ago, there might have been, in a mass shooting, depending on what you look at, could be 3 or 4 casualties or deaths per se. They've gone from 50 a year to well over several hundred. And the greater majority of those incidences occur in and around school grounds too. So anyhow, the point is that there are so many critical events that are happening across the country. The question is how can one organization, and we'll just say the IAFF, cover all that? And the reality is you can't. You can't do it from manpower, and you can't do it from a cost basis. So what we have to do, from Firefighter Nation and fire engineering to anybody in associated with the fire service, is support this education and training, just like Michael did from a PEP standpoint of training the next person. We're doing it from a podcast and talking about resources. But I think about the individual that doesn't have the support of the IAFF, or even doesn't even know the resources of the NVFC, or a person like Frank Lito, like I did, to call, right? How do we support that? And that's not an answer I'm asking that we do. One would be join the IAFF, right? I think
that's always a good option.
Yeah.
But like you said, that's not the, we don't have the bandwidth to take care of, like you said, the sheer volume, and it's not always IAFF members that are involved. I appreciated the invite to this, and I appreciate what y'all are doing. Like you mentioned, with this Firefighter Nation, with this podcast, there is so much to be said for letting members know that it's okay to come out and talk. It's warranted. It's needed. I can think back on years ago on a couple of different very critical incidents. I can remember one of my lieutenants. I was a firefighter. One of my lieutenants called me and said, "Hey, you mind if we go talk?" I was at the Union Hall, and we went and talked about a call we both were on. Thankfully, it wasn't affecting me, but it gave us a chance to talk and talk back through that incident. And that was 10 plus years ago, back when it was even less likely someone wanted to talk to someone about an incident. But what y'all are doing is great, letting people know that, hey, it's okay. We're still firefighters, and we're still going to get on the rig and respond on the next call. But it's okay to talk about some of these things that are affecting us, whether it be an incident or relationships or whatever difficulties we're facing in life. Being willing to talk is important.
Well, I appreciate you offering that, because it took me back about 10 years ago when a friend of mine and a buddy of mine died at age 50, complications with Alzheimer's. And so I went there to support my the family, and my friend Rich Pinsky, who runs Ignite the Spirit, brought some. I think we brought some stuff for Thanksgiving, some money and some turkey, and so we interact with the family for about 5 minutes, and then we leave. We go outside, and my buddy Rich, 6'3", 270 pounds, played Division II basketball, tough guy. We were out there tearing up because of the loss. and we're like, should we do more? Could we do more? What else can we do? Back to the thing that I asked you, in a sense, how do you turn the mind off of, like, did I do a good job today for, your role and responsibility? And that's what we as peer supporters do too. Because again, I've been a clinician, licensed person since 1991. A long time. And the greatest responsibility I have is to have somebody before me asking me or talking with me or asking my advice. And that's what people every single day do for you, do with you. And I know Chris and I have talked about this, is some people, not you, again, it could be overwhelming. Like, the things that I offer this person will and could change the trajectory of this person's existence and their family, which it has, and hopefully it's all been beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's I think back, people will recall a conversation that we had, and I may not remember exactly what I told them, but at the time, it was really important because they remember it. But I've had the same instances where, I'll tell someone about a conversation that we had and they won't remember it, but it was really important to me what they said. And so we all have those experiences. We all have those levels of being able to influence someone and influence them in a positive manner. And, I'm sure, we walk away so many times not even thinking about what a difference we might have made in that moment. But it's like, whether it be those videos that you might see, or dramatic moments in a movie where you see, someone say something just to be kind to someone, and it made the difference. They put the gun away, or they put the pill bottle, they put the cat back on it, just those dramatic moments. But I'm sure we have those. I'm sure y'all do that. You don't recognize or realize that y'all have had people put the gun away with what y'all have done over the years as peer supporters, and you may never know it. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying before. You won't ever know the number of lives that you've saved with what y'all have done, because it's not a tangible. You can't see the rescue being made, but I know y'all have. I know you've done that.
Yeah, I think that to your point, there's rescues being made every day. You just don't see them, right? And
yeah,
from the resources, the IAFF, right? Just recapping on it, whether it's in-person class, you can literally go to the IAFF website right now, log in, and do modules and videos. There's IAFF YouTube videos. There's so many different things of training that you can get yourself started. But, something that I had written down before Dan shared about Frank was whether you're an individual in crisis or somebody in your local's in crisis, or it's a department type situation, you don't have to have the blueprint. You don't have to know top to bottom what you need to do. You just need to know who to reach out to. Right. And that's why you have people like Michael, who's a District 11 VP, or whoever your VP is, right? You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to know who to call, right? And they're going to get the ball rolling for you. And I think for me, sitting here listening, it speaks volumes when you have somebody like Dan, and I know he might roll his eyes when I say this, but, a department like Chicago, licensed professional, ran their EAP program, calls Frank and says, "What do I do?" Right? If that's not humbleness, and that's not, I don't know what is. Right? Because you would think, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but you're thinking, oh, Dan DeGryse in the Chicago Fire Department, surely they're going to know what to do. Right? The point of it is, you don't always have to have the answers. You just have to know where to look. Right? And there's people out there that are willing to help you. You just have to be willing to reach up and reach out.
Yep.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to equate it to the veteran captain or lieutenant riding in the front seat. But we don't have all the experiences, and you can have, something you've never seen before, or something you might have seen before, but the young firefighter on the back, who's a licensed electrician, and but if you'll open your ears and be willing to let someone share their knowledge and their experience, there's a lot to be said for that. That humility, being humble. Say, hey, look, I don't have the answer. I'm the big local, but I don't have all the answers. I'm the district vice president, but I don't have all the answers. Just know who to talk to, who to call.
Well, Michael, on behalf of myself and Chris and Firefighter Nation, we and really all the people you've helped and will be helping in the future and in the IAFF and beyond, appreciate you carving out an hour for us. And before we go, I'm assuming the 4 pictures back there, 3 of them are your DeGryse. What's the helmets? What?
Well, one is my degree. The other 2 are my wife's. So the big one is Texas A&M University, and then she's got Oklahoma State and Oklahoma City University. The helmets, that's there's one of the Aggies down in College Station who does a lot of pencil and watercolor artwork. It's A&M football helmets. So
okay, and
yes,
that's where your wife went.
That's where I went. I'm a Texas Aggie, and she's an Oklahoma State Cowboy.
A&M next to Oklahoma State. Oof.
That's right. It's a house divided, but it could be a lot worse. Her orange could be a little bit different orange. They've got, as they call it, pumpkin orange there in Oklahoma State, is what she says.
Well, I appreciate you sharing about your wife too, because any of us know, and I'm not ashamed to say this, is that she's got more degrees than I do, and she is the chief of the house. So
yes, sir.
Sometimes I try to push my weight around just because I'm bigger than her. But
well, she doesn't hear it. She doesn't hear it very often, but I give her a lot of credit when I'm on the road or because. Even just this week, there are some things that happened at the house, and tonight will be the first night I'm sleeping in my own bed, and I think like 12 days. So
Wow.
it's nice to be home. But I flew home this morning, and I think I'm home for at least 2 nights. But yeah, she takes care of the house.
Well, we want you to get you to dinner on time, and I'm sure you got like 32 more texts and emails to respond to before that. So
yes, sir. This was
thanks
great.
a ton, Michael.
You bet. Yeah. I appreciate the invite, and thank you much. And y'all keep doing some great work. Thank you.
Welcome to Mental Health Monthly with Dan DeGryse and Chris Muscle.